Hey guys, this is Nishika Menezes. So in today's video, I'm gonna be talking about the landing process in detail. I know I covered it briefly in my previous video, but then I thought it would be better to actually just take this topic separately and make a video because a lot of you guys had questions on the different kiosk or the immigration counter that we need to go as soon as we land. So let's start off with the first thing that we need to be doing while you're on board the flight. So probably around an hour or 1.5 hour before you land, the air hostesses on the flight will give you something called a declaration card, which you need to be filling. And this is how the declaration card looks like. So this is one card which is given for a family of 4. So up until 4 members, information is where you can actually fill or use one declaration card to be filled. As you can see in this declaration card, the left side of it has all of instructions as to the different sections that are there, and you can read through those sections if you have any doubts understanding what needs to be filled. Starting off with the first section, which is part A. As you can see, there are 4 4 options given or space given for the details of the family members. Since I was a single applicant, I just used the first section here, which is filling in my name, date of birth and citizenship, which is India. And that's it for me because, as I mentioned, single applicant. But if you have more than one traveling, then you can utilize the rest of the section to fill out details of those family members as well. So that is the first part of the first section. Then we also have a space to provide home address. So this is nothing but your home country address, so which would be your Indian home address or any other permanent address from whichever country you belong to and from where you're traveling. So you need to mention the complete address with the postal code and the country, state, and all of the address regarding your home address. And the third part of part A is the means by which you're arriving. So you need to mention, have you arrived via air, rail, or highway and things like that. Since most of us would be traveling by air, you need to check the air option, and then you need to provide the airline or the flight number that you've been traveling on. Then there's another section here which says purpose of trip. So the options given are study, personal, business. Since this is a PR visa that you would be coming on and not a visit or a study permit, the option that you need to be selecting is personal and not study or business. Then you need to mention where are you arriving from. So here there are again 3 options: US only, other country direct, other country via US. So if you're traveling from, I'll take an example, my case example. So I was traveling from Delhi to Toronto and it was a direct flight, right? So what I did was I selected other country direct, and that is the checkbox you need to be selecting as well if you're traveling directly from your home country to Canada. And the last section of this particular part, which is part A, is a few of yes or no questions that you need to be checking depending on the case that applies to you. So I will just read out the questions that would be that are asked here. So the first question is, if you are bringing any firearms or any other weapons. Obviously this is going to be checking as no. Then commercial goods, whether or not for resale. So if you're getting any samples, equipment, or tools which are considered as commercial goods in Canada, whether you use it for your own purpose or for resale, that is something that you need to declare here. So you can select yes if you're bringing any of this criteria that matches, and no if you're not getting any of it. Then the third question is about food. So if you're getting any meat, fish, seafood, eggs, dairy products, fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, plants, flowers, wood, animals, birds, insects, or any other parts, and products or byproducts of any of these things, they need to be checking yes. If not, then you can select no. And the fourth and the last question, yes or no question here, is currency and or monetary instruments which could be more than Canadian 10,000 Canadian dollars. So if you're getting anything in terms of liquid cash or traveler's check or bank drafts and things like that, which sums up to more than 10,000 Canadian dollars, then you need to be checking yes. If not, you can check no. There was a question in one of my previous videos, so I would like to mention that as a call out here. So if you are planning to come here, open a bank account and then transfer funds from your home country into this account, then and say you're doing around $15,000 from that account, from your home country's account to Canadian account, then you do not have to check yes, because this is something that you're not getting in hand as a currency or a monetary instrument. So that funds is still in your home country and you're just transferring it later on, so you don't have to check yes for that particular criteria. Then if you have any accompanied goods, so this is where if you have anything that you're going to be shipping later to Canada, then you have to check yes. I would suggest it's always better to check yes, because you never know what you're going to be getting later on, and just in case if you want to get it later and if you've checked no and you have not got the right papers in hand, then you would be taxed for the goods that you would be getting in. So it's always better to say yes, and I will cover the part where you need to go and do the declaration as to what all possible items that you would be getting in the later part of the video. Finally, it says, have you ever visited a farm or will be going to a farm in Canada? So if this applies to you, check yes. If not, then you can check no. So that covers the first part of the declaration card, which is filling in the names, address, the flight details and the purpose of visit and where you're arriving from, and the different yes or no questions that I just spoke about. Let's go to the part B. So this is in terms of your stay in Canada. So first of all, it asks what is the duration of stay in Canada. So this is basically for visitors. So if you are a visitor to Canada, then you would be filling this information. But since I'm guessing all of you are watching this video because it's all about the PR process, so you do not have to fill anything in this particular section. Then the next question here in part B is, do you or any person listed above exceeds the duty-free allowance per person? So the duty-free allowance per person is mentioned right on the left side of the instruction. So the duty-free is if you're getting any gifts which is valued more than 60 Canadian dollars at each, and alcohol or tobacco. So if any of this applies to you, then you'll have to check yes. If not, then you can check no. And then the last part of this particular declaration card is part C, which is for the residents of Canada. So since this you will be landing on a PR visa, so this is the part that you will be checking. So it's the question here is, do you or any other person listed above exceeds the exemption per person? So this is same as the part B, which was filled for visitors. Same question repeats if you are a resident. So same thing if it applies that you're getting gifts which is more than $60 for each of those gift, or alcohol and tobacco, then you'll have to check yes. And if you are not getting, then you can check no. One thing that I can clarify is alcohol. I'm not sure, but I think I didn't carry any alcohol, but then I think you can get up to 1.5 to 2 liters of alcohol bottle with you. And with regards to tobacco, you can carry 200 cigarettes per person. I know about the cigarettes, I'm not sure about the other things, but yeah, these are something that you are allowed. So if you exceed over and above this, then you have to check yes. I would suggest you to go through the just Google search and type in your question with regards to what is the allowance for both alcohol and tobacco, which could be the cigarettes, cigars, or electronic cigarettes and things like that. So and then only try to travel within the limit, but if you are traveling above the limit, then this is where you'll have to declare that. Finally, the last section is about uh, filling in some other details of the same family members that you had mentioned in part A. So just a second. Value of goods. Okay, so the question here, it says date left Canada. So if you are leaving Canada, then this is the section that you would be filling. But since we are landing into Canada, then we don't have to fill this section, and that is why even I left it blank. And finally, part D, which is just the signature of all of the above mentioned 4 family members that you have, the options of filling in for 4 family members. The signatures of all these family members need to be put here, and also mention the date on which you signed this whole declaration card. So as I mentioned, this is something that you will be getting on board when you're in the flight, and you'll have to fill it before you land, because this is something that is very important, and all of the immigration counters are going to be asking you for this declaration card. Okay, so now that we've done with the declaration part, the second step in your landing process is, as soon as you land, once you have the internet connectivity, what you need to do is fill in the ArriveCan app. So this is an app which has recently been made mandatory for the purpose of your health declaration, and this needs to be done before you go to the kiosk or the immigration counter, because they're going to ask you for a code that is being generated out of this app once you fill in all the details. Very high level, it is all the questions that needs to be filled in this particular app are pretty straightforward. I think the first question is about how are you entering into Canada. So you need to select by air if you're coming through flight, or you can select the other modes if that applies to you. Then the next question asks about, is your travel exempt? So since we are all traveling, even when the travel restriction apply, that means that you've got an exemption, either in the form of authorization letter or any other similar letters that you've got. So you need to select yes, you're exempt from the travel restriction. Then the type of exempt, that's the following question that will be asked to you. I think there are 4 options. One is cross-border services, medical, and few other things. The option that you need to be selecting is essential. So since all the essential travels are being exempt from the travel restriction, and that is the reason why you will be receiving the authorization letter, so you need to select essential under this particular question. Next page that will open up is basically your details about the airport that you're landing in and your flight details. So you need to mention the airport details. So I landed in the Toronto Pearson Airport Terminal 1, so I selected that. Airlines, I traveled to Air Canada, that is what I selected. Next, it asks you the airline number or the flight number, so you need to type in that, and the date on which you're arriving. That is the day that you've actually landed. Then the last page in this whole ArriveCan app is about place of quarantine. So you need to mention the place where you're going to be self-isolating for 14 days. So this is the place that you will be going and staying post all of these immigration process are done, and not necessarily it needs to be in Toronto, because for me, I am an Alberta provincial nominee candidate. So from Toronto, I was taking another flight to Calgary, and the address that I mentioned there was the Calgary Airbnb address that I booked for self-isolation. And just to call out here, once this is done, after you land and everything, right, every day on this particular app you get a notification to do your daily check-in. That is the way of the Canadian government to track your health. So it just asks you about the day, and they will ask you if you are having any COVID-19 symptoms, and if you're facing any kind of medical conditions, then you have to check yes. If not, then if everything is going fine, you just have to check no, and that's pretty much it. But for the first 14 days, you will get this notification every day, and then you have to do the check-in every day until you finish your self-isolation. Awesome. So we finished the declaration card, and then we are done with the ArriveCAN. So now we have after you land, you will be directed to a section or the first immigration counter. So here in the Toronto Pearson Airport, you have two uh, queues for two types of travelers, I would say. Yeah, the first section is for Canadian citizens and PR holders, which is permanent resident holders. Since we are traveling on the confirmation of PR, we are not considered as permanent resident yet. We'll be only considered once we finish all our immigration steps, and finally you get a stamp on your passport saying that you've landed, and that's when you actually become a PR. So with the first section of PR and the citizens is something that we will not be going, but rather we'll go to the second section, which is the visitors section. So if it is your first time landing on a confirmation of PR, so please go to the visitors section. As soon as you go to the visitors section, it's a queue to the counter, and then once you've called to the counter, what you need to do is give 5 types of documents here. One is your passport, boarding pass, declaration card that you just filled in the flight, um, confirmation of PR, and authorization letter. So these are the 5 things that will be asked by the immigration officer. You need to provide that. Plus they will also ask you the ArriveCAN app code. So as I mentioned earlier, once you fill in everything, you will get a code which is actually valid for 5 hours. So once you generate the code for the next 5 hours, it's going to be active. So that is the code that they're going to be asking you. And the officer will also ask you questions with regards to whatever you have declared on the declaration card. So if, for example, if you're saying that you've got a firearms or any other weapons, and if you say yes, then obviously they were going to be calling you out to check on you. Or else another case is if you are said that you have any accompanied goods, then they will confirm with you saying that okay, do you have the forms filled for that. I will cover what kind of forms you need to fill for the goods to be accompanied later on in the later part of this video. So pretty much nothing else will be asked apart from I think they did ask me about the place of quarantine. So they're gonna be asking you what is the address that you're gonna be staying for the self-isolation purpose, and you just need to mention the address that you just filled in your ArriveCAN app. So this is the first counter. There isn't many questions asked here. If you have everything filled correctly, then you do not have to worry about having a long wait time. The whole process was done for me within 5 minutes, so that was pretty easy. And then once you're done with this, they will ask you to move to the next counter. So the next counter is nothing but the main immigration primary kiosk that you need to be going to, wherein you'll finally get your passport stamped. So the instructions or the directions in the Pearson Airport is pretty much clear, so you wouldn't face any issue navigating through the airport to the next immigration counter. Just follow the blue line, and you will reach the place. And this particular counter is a little bigger, so there'll be multiple counters, and there'll be a waiting area where you can actually have a seat if it is taking some time for them to confirm your details. But first you would go to the counter. Again, the same 5 to 6 documents will be asked here, which is your passport, boarding pass, COPR, authorization letter, and Okay, maybe I missed one thing. Let me just, if I recollect, I will just tell you. But pretty much the same 5 things that were asked in your first counter will be asked here, and then they will take all the details, and then they will ask you to sit, because they need to process the whole information that you have given, and they need to feed into the systems and then confirm if you are actually exempt from travel and things like that. So I was asked to wait for probably 2 minutes, and then my name was called, and then I went, and they said that everything looks good. And what they did was they stamped my visa, they stamped my passport, saying that this is the date that I've landed, with the seal, and also mentioned the date that I've landed, and along with the COPR, or the counterfoil number, the which was mentioned in the authorization letter. So this is the updated counterfile that you receive once you get the authorization letter. Then they also printed out the new COPR for me, because this forms as your landing document or landing paper. So whenever you're in Canada, until you get your PR card, this is going to be the proof that you have landed on confirmation of PR, and now you're a permanent resident of Canada. So if anybody asks you about your landing papers or landing documents, that is nothing but your COPR that they've given you. If you're not traveling on AL and have the normal process, then your COPR that you would have received via mail in your home country, you get 2 copies, right? So one of it will be kept by the immigration officer, and the second one will be sealed and given to you. So that becomes your landing paper. But my case, I travel on AL, so they printed out a new COPR. I did not ask for it, but the immigration officer gave it to me upfront. And I would suggest, if they're not giving it to you, to ask them to give it to you, because it is better to have the updated counterfoil number printed on a sheet of paper, and saying that this is your COPR. Then what they're going to be doing is asking you an address for your PR card delivery. So they're going to be mailing you a PR card, so you need to provide an address where you would get this PR card to. And in my case, they said it would take up to 4 months, and I actually gave my friend's address to receive the PR card. And then finally, they will gonna be telling you about SIN. So up until pre-COVID, what was happening was, right there at the kiosk or the counter, they would give you the SIN, or the social insurance number, activated. But then because of the whole situation that happened, they have stopped that now. So now you'll have to go and do it online. So they'll give you a piece of sheet, which will have all the instruction as to how to generate your social insurance number. And pretty much that's it in this counter. After this counter, what you need to be doing is, again, exit from whichever way you came, and then take a turn to the baggage area. So before you go to the third counter, what you'll find is there's these conveyor belts, wherein you'll have your baggage being dropped, and you can pick it up. And then as you move again following the blue line, what happens is there's a section where they do a check. If you do not have any goods accompanying later on, then what you need to be doing is drop your declaration card in the at the drop box, which is there at this section. But if you have an accompanied goods which is being coming in later on, then they will direct you to the third counter. Or if you have any currency or monetary instrument that you actually are getting in terms of liquid cash or bonds or stocks or bank drafts, which is more than $10,000, and that is when they will be directing you to this third counter. I am not sure what is the whole steps if you're getting more than $10,000, because that was not the case for me, so I won't be able to answer that question. But I did go to the third counter because I had unaccompanied goods, which was going to be following later on. Okay, so now with regards to the goods to follow, there are these 2 forms which are available, which is BSF 186 and BSF 186A. And this is how BSF 186 looks, and this is how 186A looks. BSF 186 is what you're going to be filling. If and in this form there are actually maybe 6 to 7 spaces given for you to fill in, and if you have goods which is more than 7, then you will have to use BSF 186A as an additional paper to mention those goods. So now let's go through BSF 186 document and what all things that you need to fill. And this is something you can do it before you even travel. It need not be typed. You can actually just it can be a handwritten form as well. So the things that you need to be filling in here is your name, the address, or your Canadian address where you will be staying, or you can give the address of the PR card that you've given. Then the country of origin and the country of export. In my case, both of it was India. Then port of entry is something that I would ask you to just leave it blank, because the immigration officer will fill that up. Date of landing is the date that you've landed, and your UCI, which is unique client identifier number, which is printed on your COPR, or it's available on your CIC account. Then there is a section where you can actually fill in the details of what all things that you need to be that you would be getting in, and the Canadian equivalent dollar value. So what I did was I had some clothes, footwear, kitchen utensils, and personal care items that were going to be that I'm going to be shipping later on. So I just mentioned those as headers and then provided the Canadian value for that. And after this, the next section is for conveyances. So if you're getting any vehicles later on, then this is the place that you need to be declaring, so that you don't pay customs duty later on when you're actually getting it. So you will have to mention the model of the vehicle, serial number of the vehicle, and also the Canadian equivalent dollar value for these, and the vehicle number. Then if you, as I mentioned, you can use 186A form if you have goods which is more than the spaces provided, and if you need to fill out more, then you need to use 186A. So there's an option here to tick if you have 186A form filled, then you need to check that. And also there is something called goods to follow, yes or no, even that you need to say yes. Apart from that, nothing else need to be filled in this form at your end. Once you have this form filled prior to your I would suggest prior to your boarding of your home country flight, I would ask you to just fill this form and keep it, and keep 2 copies of it. Not sure, it might come handy. And then as I mentioned, you'll be directed to the third counter. So this is where you're going to be giving that 186 BSF 186 form. The immigration officer is just gonna look at that and fill out the rest of the details which are missing in this form, and he's gonna stamp this particular document. And after he's done with the whole stamping, what they're gonna be doing is giving you another sheet of paper which will actually summarize this whole declaration that you have done, and tell you the total monetary value, and provides you saying that it provides you an exemption from paying duty or tax later on when you're actually getting it, and if the amount of it is within this or equal to the declaration amount that you've done. Yes, so this took me the third counter, or the third immigration kiosk desk actually took me 5 minutes to finish. And once this was done, I actually just headed to my gate to board my flight. But if you're staying in Toronto, then all you have to do is just exit the airport. After this, if you at the airport, you also have place where you can buy a Canadian SIM. So if you're interested, you can actually get the SIM as well from this particular location. And that's pretty much all of the landing procedure involved, or the steps involved in your land right after you land in Canada at your first port of entry. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So comment on this video if you have any question that I've still not clarified, then and I will just reply on your comment. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have safe travel if you're planning to travel anytime soon. And I would be the next video that I'm going to be doing is about banking and the different types of bank accounts that you can open, and what is the best way as a best possible way for a newcomer. So that should be up in some time. Do check out that video as well, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye bye.